Can you hear me okay, Aaron?
Yep, I just got the stream started here.
Great, thank you. Good evening and welcome to the Allegheny Clarion Valley School Board Workshop meeting for September 11th, 2023. The AC Valley workshops are conducted virtually, and the link to access the workshop is always posted at the acvsd.org website. During the workshop, I will provide the school board members with information that will help to clarify agenda items, and please feel free to jump in anytime for questions. As a friendly reminder, please keep your mic off until you're ready to speak. And at this time, can I have Madam Secretary please conduct the roll call?
Patty Anderson. Carrie Armagost.
Here.
Megan Dreher.
Here.
Brady Fight. Diane Page.
Here.
Jeff Powell. Janine Stump.
Here.
Eric Sundling.
Here.
And Kelly Triwilliger.
Here.
And I do see Patty Anderson's iPad on there, so she's on there.
And Brady should be calling in as well. He's working and has some spotty cell phone service.
I just hopped on here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you, Brady. Thanks.
Okay. All right. If I get disconnected, I'll definitely call back in.
Sounds good. Thanks. Okay, we don't have any public participation, but we do have a presentation this evening from Farmers Bank, and I'm not sure if Bobby's on. Aaron, do you know if she's linked on?
Hi, I'm on.
Oh, hi,
David.
Bobby.
Hi. Yeah. So I didn't have a formal presentation to present on there. Did you want me to start now, or was there something else? I don't want to.
No, we're ready for you right now, Bobby.
Okay. I didn't have a formal presentation, but I know from talking with Andrea that there may be some questions from the board, in addition to the members that I spoke to the other day about what Farmers is doing, but in a nutshell, basically, coming to Farmers of Canfield, there would be some restructuring on the accounts. The majority of the accounts would be in accounts that have no fees or have interest bearing and no fees. We were looking at taking the operating account and moving it into what's called a commercial analysis account, where the balances offset the service charges. And in that account, there are service charges, but the earnings credit helps to remove those. We're only talking about the general account. And then we also discussed an additional sweep account so that the district could earn interest on additional monies that weren't needed in the account to either cover the fees, or since the earnings credit is 0.50 and the sweep is going to be 2.5. The board may decide that it would be better to leave a lower target balance in the checking account and see some fees, but make 5 times more in interest to offset and net out against the fees. So that was what we had presented. And so I'm just available for any questions that you may have.
Bobby, could you just stay on for a moment? And Aaron, could you scroll down to finance and purchase letter I and J? Bobby, we have 2 motions on the agenda, and there may be some questions from the school board whenever we get down to it. But since you're on the call right now, the letter I, we have a discussion around the general fund checking account, moving it into the public sector analysis account with the targeted balance between 200,000 and 550,000. additional sweep. Can you explain that a little bit more in detail for some people that may not be in the banking industry?
Sure, sure. The public sector analysis, that's that account I was talking about where there are service charges based on the activity in the account as well as the special treasury services. I'll put myself on here that the district currently uses, which is remote deposit and ACH for payroll. And so there are some fees for various things. In the public sector analysis account, each month, all the different fees are calculated and they are reviewed against an earnings credit, which is not interest, but is a calculation used to offset service charges in that same public sector analysis account. So what we were talking about is how much should we leave in that, it's the operating account basically. What should we leave in there to maximize the earnings for the district? So if we left a target balance of $200,000, there will be less earnings credit earned against that money, but there'll be more money placed into the sweep. And so greater interest will be earned. For example, at $200,000, we had calculated that the service charge would be around $228 a month, but the earnings in the sweep would be $1,130, and that would net the district ahead $902. The higher the target balance, the less that's going into the sweep. So for instance, if we had a target balance of $500,000, then you would see less of a service charge. We're talking around $113 of service charge, but the interest that would be earned is $513 and you're netting out to about $400. So between $200,000 and $550,000, you're losing around $500 in interest a month. And there is no charge for that sweep. Is there any question on that? I know it's a little different.
And
mean,
these figures, the target balance of 200,000 and the additional sweep of 550, based on that chart that you presented, this was my recommendation to the board. That would be, I feel, safe with our current budget and financial needs.
So Andrea, with that letter, motion I and J, is that the same motion or there's two different accounts that were?
No, there's just one. That should just be one motion. I think we were originally talking about leaving it blank to fill it in. The 200 and the 550,000 are my recommendations.
Okay. So Bobby, what happens if we drop below the 200,000? Is there any kind of service fee or is it just we're not collecting the interest the way that we had expected?
Well, at 200,000, there will be service fees against the account. You won't have an additional service fee on there. It's just going to be the normal fees. The system knows what's sitting in the sweep account. So if you fell below 200,000 because you'd written a check for, let's say, 300,000 for some reason, the system knows that the money's sitting there in the background and will still pay that check. There's no risk of an NSF or a problem to the district on there. So there really is no additional problem or cost to the district if you fell below the 200,000.
So do you pull money from the sweep account as the 200,000 account is used?
Yes.
So eventually that sweep will be below 500,000 and then it won't be incurring as much interest, correct?
It will, but you have normal deposits going in there as well, plus the money that comes in from the state.
We shouldn't fall below, we won't fall below that 550, and that's why I thought that was a safe number.
Okay.
And Bobby, I'm sure you work with other schools, correct?
Oh, yes. We have, oh boy, we have 160 public clients in Ohio and 140 public clients in Pennsylvania. My specific job is overlooking public entities, and we do have quite a few Ohio schools, and we've inherited quite a few Pennsylvania schools through the merger with Elmlinton.
And it would probably depend on the school's budget and their fund balance and such, depending on that number would dictate how much they have in these two accounts. Is that correct? Or is there a general rule of thumb that the other schools are using with those two numbers?
No, the basic, every school is slightly different. What we need for a target balance and fees depends on what the average balance is in the account, how much activity there is, and that of course fluctuates from month to month, and it's busier at certain times of the years than others on there. So that determines what a target balance would be, and then how much would be in the sweep. And it just depends on the district. I mean, we have I have some Ohio districts that they have hundreds and hundreds of items going through every month, but they also carry maybe 5 or 6 or 7 million in their sweep account.
Okay. Any other question for Bobby while we got her on the phone? Okay, well, we appreciate your time. We'll go ahead and continue to discuss this, and we'll reach back out to you. We do have a voting meeting on Monday, the 18th, and then Andrea will contact you afterwards.
Okay, and if there's any additional questions you think of after this, please let me know. And I would just like to emphasize, the bank does appreciate the fact that Allegheny Clarion did remain with us during that merger, and we certainly will try to make everything as smooth as possible for the district going forward, just as it was in the past.
Thank you.
Thanks,
We
Bobby.
appreciate it.
Unity. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, and at this time, I'll open it up to see if there's any board concerns or any comments from the school board at this time. Moving down to the consent agenda, under letter A, we have a number of conferences and a few field trips in front of you this evening. The first one is a school safety workshop that I put in to attend in Pittsburgh, October 2nd, $275 or $79 registration fee. No other cost that comes out of my district travel budget. I'll be going down to listen to Dennis Lewis. He's a national authority on school safety. I heard Dennis maybe a half a dozen years ago, and he was riveting, educational, and provides a lot of free resources. He's going to present information on research and data associated with school violence, preventative strategies that can work in schools, how to empower staff, responding to violence in schools, and various tabletop exercise. The next trip is from Minnie Logue. She put in to go to Penn West for a conference as far as how they're overhauling the professional system and the awards for student aid. So she's going up there to gather information, help support our students as they apply for aid as they go on to higher education. And then I put in to use our ESSER professional development money to cover a cost to the PDE SAS Institute. That's the big conference each year. I haven't been there in a number of years. Secretary Khalid Mohammed will be there, Keystone Address, and various leadership training sessions. They're going to focus in on student achievement, database decision-making, how to improve the educational climate, and the future of educational challenges. And there's a lot of discussion going on with the budget impasse and the funding formula team that they had put together to revamp how to distribute money. So it should be a very educational program for me to attend. Next, we have Peggy Plowman. She's our secondary transition coordinator. She submitted a number of trainings from the IU. She goes up there for the secondary transition updates, indicator 13 and 14 requirements, and the agency involvement on IEP and transition assessments. And that money is in her budget. And then you'll see a number of requests from Allie Atwood, our K through 12 gifted coordinator, and she submitted various conferences and programs for the students to attend. A lot of these students have GIEP goals written into their GIEP, and these curriculum-based assessments and games and practices that they do help to meet the requirements for those GIEP goals. They help to foster lifelong reading and curriculum. And then you'll also see that she's going up for a couple trainings as well. And then on the top of page 6, you'll see that we have Joe Graff. He's going to take a group of kids, well, 2 kids actually, to a 2-day gifted program that helps to support STEM opportunities, engages students in the community, and it again aligns students with their GIEP goals. So Allie doesn't have to attend all of those sessions, and sometimes she reaches out and gets other teachers to help support those students. And then moving down through, we have a handful of CPI requested trainings with population changing and us taking on more of the emotional support here within the district. We do have CPI teams, and CPI is a actual organization. It's crisis prevention intervention, and it teaches strategies called nonviolent crisis interventions. Strategies used to prevent a wide variety of behaviors from happening in a nonviolent manner. Nonviolent crisis intervention training is designed to teach best practices for managing difficult situation and disruptive student behaviors. Staff learn how to identify at-risk students and use nonverbal and verbal techniques to diffuse unsafe behavior. CPI training has been around since 1980, and they've trained more than 6 million professionals over the course of that. We have 2 CPI teams and 1 in each building. And if we have a student that's a threat to hurting themselves or somebody else, then we'll call the CPI team and do our best to help support that student. So you'll see we have Danielle Lutz, who's a aide, Kirsty Seipel, Amanda Rankin, Minnie Logue, and Holly Irwin that submitted to attend these trainings. And we do support them. Going back up to
just a quick note here.
Sure.
Sorry, David, just a quick note here. On the CPI training, if we hire any long-term substitute nurses, we should be sending them to that training as well, correct?
We haven't sent any substitutes to those trainings, and it depends on how often we use those nurses. We do have a number of other staff members who are certified within both districts, so we don't necessarily need the nurse to be CPI trained, although both of our nurses are pretty active and support the staffing there as well. So I guess we'd have to think about that one, and depending on the use of those nurses.
Okay, all right, no, that's fine, thank you.
Yep, good point. Moving down through, you'll see Darlene Scott, she put in to go to the Steele's standard training. That's the change in the science curriculum. Darlene teaches 2nd grade as we prepare the students to take the 4th grade science PSSAs. That would be a good training for her, and we're excited that she's interested in training. We also have Michelle Austin. She's our homeless liaison, and she attends the annual McKinney-Vento Homeless Workshop in IU4. That's over at Grove City, and she does that not only to ensure that we support our students, but also to ensure that we're aligned with the recommendation from the state. And then finally, you'll see Stephanie Best, our elementary librarian. She put in to do the librarian network meetings at IU6, and she has 2 different dates in there, and they work with their colleagues, and they have various discussions about policies, career readiness, SEL and student STEM, and marketplace projects. So I know we have a lot in front of you this evening. Before I move on, are there any questions about any of those conferences or field trips? Okay, moving down through the consent agenda, we do have Cynthia Snyder. She's a guest teacher. And then we do have a handful of nurses that Tracy Daly and I are planning to meet with, and we're hoping by the 18th we'll have a number of substitute nurses in front of you as well. Letter C is a request from the AC Valley Student Council to use the elementary cafetorium on Friday, September 19th for the homecoming games. Letter D is a request by Bobby McGarvey to be a volunteer with the cheerleading program. Bobby's been a volunteer in the past, and we have all our information here on campus, and she has been working with Stacy, so Stacy could use the additional help. Any questions on the consent agenda before we move down through finance and purchase? We'll pay the bills on Monday, but getting down to letter I, we just heard a discussion and a presentation from Bobby and Farmers Bank. Is there any additional information that the school board needs Andrea and I to get before we vote? We'll condense that, turn that into one motion right there, letter I and J. And Andrea is making a recommendation of the 200,000 and 550,000 with the additional suite. Okay, we'll leave that in there, and we'll have that vote on Monday the 18th. Letter K, you'll see that the Scrubgrass Presbyterian Church had donated $400 for overdue lunch account balances. And that really helps out our students and some of the families that struggle here at AC Valley. And we're very gracious on behalf of the students to accept that donation. Cafeteria director, business manager, and superintendent always taking that money, review the accounts at the end of the year and distribute it up accordingly. On the top of page 2, you'll see that we're changing the high school activities account from Emily Shoemaker, who moved from the part-time district-wide secretary into the high school secretary position, to Melissa Morrison, who was recently hired as the part-time district-wide secretary. And that's just to ensure that they're able to work with the groups up at the high school. Moving down to personnel, we have a number of items in front of me this evening. First is a letter of resignation from assistant junior high boys basketball coach Caleb Penny. Caleb got himself a teaching degree, and he's teaching at a neighboring school district. Letter B is a motion to advertise for that vacancy. And then letter C and D, you'll see that we made a modification to the elementary and junior senior high school secretary job description. And we just added a task that had been done down here in the district office for a good number of years. After 10 days, and we have students that have attendance related issues, we mail out certified letters, and we're just changing that mailing process to go back to that secretary. They'll be working in conjunction with Michelle Austin, our attendance officer and homeless liaison, and we're just going to make the shift. We've already provided the information to the secretaries, and we're just asking support on changing those job descriptions. Letter E, very happy that Tracy Patton stepped up into the Senior High Student Council advisory position. That's a yearly stipend of $1,170. And then equally as happy that Minnie Loeb was able to step up and take on the Junior High Student Council advisor role. And that's $761. So kudos to both of them. They'll do great. Letter G, that ties into a contract that's later on that we approved last year as well from the AmeriCorps. But we have 6 high school students who will be tutoring elementary students, working with the teachers down here at the elementary in front of you this evening. And those students are going to make $1,800. It'll cost AC Valley through Title IV money, so we have grant money coming in to cover those costs, $1,400 to get additional support, help these kids out, and really help out the elementary students. And we did this program last year, and it was met with all kinds of success for both the elementary students and the high school students. In my mind, I feel as if we're doing some grassroots training here to help support the field of education, because we just don't have enough kids going in to become a teacher. So this is one step that could do that as well. So again, another Title IV request that we have to help out our elementary students, as well as provide our high school students with additional training, as well as money for ongoing schooling. Letter H is a motion in front of this evening to try to attract additional school nurse subs, so we can use an LPN and a RN to work underneath the nurse's license here at the district. The LPN, we're making a recommendation for $25 per hour, and the RN at $35 per hour. Again, I hope to have some names in front of you on September 18th to sub here at the district. Letter I, we've been working in the maintenance department to replace Mark Milford, and James Best has submitted his letter. I met with James, and we're working on a contract, and we're hoping to have a contract in front of the school board on the 18th to approve James starting on November 1st. This will provide James with the ability to work under Mark and start making that transition. And then right below letter I, you'll see J, and we're going to modify that motion just slightly, but that's it's going to be a stipend to Dan White to help make this transition, and he'll serve as the assistant to the maintenance director, and that'll be for the remaining portion of the school year. And we're still working on the stipend as well as the salary to get James started. Letter K is a motion to replace James Best when James moves into the maintenance director position. We did advertise after last month's meeting. We had 15 applicants. We utilized a rubric. We reviewed the applicants, and we will be interviewing 5 qualified applicants, and hoping to make a recommendation on the 18th. And if we need a little bit more time, that recommendation will come in October, but we're fairly optimistic that we can start making that transition, and hopefully we could get somebody in here to work under Mark as well before he retires on October 31st. Moving to the top of page 3, we have a motion in front of you to fill part-time permanent cafeteria position, and Stacy Redding had interviewed 2 people, and we'll have a recommendation to hire Kim Caldwell on the 18th. And then if you recall, letter M and N, we had a discussion last month about study hall monitors or lunchroom monitors for the middle of the day. So we're going to hire 2 people, hopefully, at 3.5 hours per day at $13.33 per hour. And right as it stands right now, we have 3 applicants that Dr. Jordan, Mrs. Sherman, and myself will interview and make a recommendation on Monday. And then letter O, we've had our vacancy in the boys basketball program for a while. We re-advertised. We have 2 applicants, and the athletic committee is going to interview this week and make a recommendation to hire. And hopefully we can get that position filled and get those kids back out on the court sooner than later. I know I covered a lot of material. Are there any questions about any of the personnel items in front of me this evening? Hearing none, we'll move down into instructional services. And again, as I referenced earlier, we have a partnership with Keystone Smiles, and we're hosting an AmeriCorps site down here. And the Keystone Smiles, their objective is to develop leaders for lifelong civic engagement, membership development and training, and the host site's able to help support those missions and incorporate these student workers into our day-to-day operations. We work with the AmeriCorps to recruit and support the academic needs of these students and to build a network of citizens of service. The host site are responsible for assisting in the recruitment and selection of eligible people to be enrolled in the AmeriCorps members that we have in front of you this evening. And then we provide projects, tasks, trainings, and assignments throughout the year. And then Julie Raybuck works as our host site coordinator. And again, that's the 2nd year for that agreement, and it really works very well here within the district. Moving down to policy, you'll see we have the 2nd reading of policy 006 meetings, policy 216.1 supplemental discipline records, policy 251 students experiencing homelessness. And then we have a 1st reading of GASB policy 622. And there's not a whole lot of changes on this. The old policy was from 2003. PSBA had updated this policy a few years ago. And while we went through the ARP ESSER monitoring, there was one area that we had purchased a number of pieces of technology, computers put together, and they made a recommendation to update our policy because the old policy said that we had to submit that as a whole, where individually the computers were only a couple $100. So in theory, we can buy more computers without having to go out to bid and still be in compliance. So that was the major change with GASB 622, and hopefully that'll continue to keep us in compliance with future monitoring. And then we had a discussion last month about the need for an anti-nepotism policy. I worked with PSBA, and even though they don't necessarily have a policy, we were able to work with the school board and create a policy here within the district. It will be policy 304.1. And there's a number of pieces of information, definitions associated with it. And in addition to this policy, we were able to create a couple reporting forms as well. And I'm not going to read the entire policy out. The school board's seen it, and we've had discussions associated with it. But we're just going to focus in on administrators supervising relatives. And we have a list of guidelines within this policy. I'll be working with anybody who's working in a administrative role, including myself, to ensure that we're in compliance. But we have reporting forms associated with this as well. So if there's any concerns that we have within the district and leadership and favoring or maybe not favoring a family member, there's not only a policy in place now, but we'll also have a complaint form and then also some information about subbing. So I think we have a pretty good policy in front of us this evening that just keep in mind that this policy does not prohibit us from hiring any kind of family member, whether it be an administrator, a staff member, a school board member. It's just we have to follow a particular set of guidelines to ensure our compliance. Are there any questions on the policies in front of you this evening? Okay, moving down through, we'll hear from Mark in the facilities update next Monday. We don't have anything in front of you for transportation and miscellaneous. We do have the Career Center report in front of you. And I sat through my second meeting, first face-to-face meeting at the Career Center, and there's a whole lot of activity going on up there. And Tracy Wooderson's doing a fantastic job, and that JOC, it was fun to work with them. And I look forward to 2 years of ongoing leadership up there as well. And we'll work in next week, but we do have some committee meetings coming up. We have an athletic committee meeting with the interviews. We have a technology committee meeting coming up. I've not heard anything about the grant that I submitted for the football field, and the finance committee, they met with Farmers Bank last week. So we'll have a number of reports for you on Monday. Now, as we finish off tonight, are there any questions or comments about the agenda items that I have in front of you this evening? Okay, here none, we'll go ahead and conclude for the evening. I appreciate everybody's time, and we'll see you on Monday, the 18th, face to face. Have a great evening.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.